It's my pleasure to be here, honored in fact to be here at this very imaginatively conceived conference. And I'll dispense with preliminary remarks for the sake of time and simply go on with my presentation. On an October afternoon, Newtown Creek's waters reflect clouds scudding across the blue sky. The sun is beginning to set behind Manhattan's towers across the East River. My vantage point is the Newtown Creek Nature Walk, designed by environmental artist George Tracus to, in his words, evoke the rich, continually evolving environmental, industrial, and cultural histories of the local area. Son of a logger, Canadian-born Tracus arrived in New York in the 1960s on a tanker. He developed an intimacy with Newtown Creek through years of paddling it in his own handcrafted boat, drawn to the derelict aspect of the most polluted waterway in New York. In his eyes, the creek tells a complex, multi-layered story of place that has been radically transformed by the ways people have used it, but however changed by human use, a place that may, paradoxically, reconnect people with nature. The Nature Walk opened in September 2007 on the grounds of the state-of-the-art Newtown Creek wastewater treatment plant, allowing pedestrian access to the creek for the first time since industrialization. A glacial erratic serves as a direction stone, reminding us of the creek's Ice Age origins. Steel steps lead me to a curved ramp, enclosed by bowed cement walls with portholes that mimic the inside of an old sailing vessel like those built at Newtown Creek in its industrial heyday. Through the portholes, I peer the steel onion domes of the wastewater facility. The ramp leads me past an asphalt plant toward a stone plaza. I come to 7 granite circles, chiseled with the place names of the Lenapes, the first peoples who lived here. At the plaza's east end, a bollard-shaped granite table is etched with a relief map of the creek, as it was in pre-industrial times. It's slightly tilted so that rainwater trickles downstream. 9 granite steps lead me to the water's edge, each chiseled with the names of geological eras and life forms. Mammalia marks the top step. I pause at the Carboniferous, the age when the great coal beds that would fuel the Industrial Revolution were created from buried forests. The last step is coated in algae, one of the first forms of multicellular life. A sign warns, Tidal Creek, do not swim or wade. Having no intention of taking a dip, I sit on a dry step and contemplate the creek's history. The creek is a tidal inlet that snakes 3 miles southeastward from the East River, dividing Queens from Brooklyn. Part of New York's vast estuary, it rises and falls with the tides. Between 10 and 40 feet at low tide, it's deep enough to accommodate barges, tugs, and fishing boats, a natural feature that destined it, or doomed it, depending on your perspective, to become a commercial waterway. Europeans settled these shores in the mid-1600s, having quote-unquote extinguished Indian claims to the land. The creek's salt marshes attracted farmers who cut salt hay for their cattle in winter. Its feeder streams powered their grist mills. The fast-draining glacial soil supported their crops, and the creek ferried their produce to Manhattan markets. Like the Lenapes before them, the farmers also exploited wild food sources such as waterfowl, shellfish, and fish. A branch of the creek known as Dutch Kill was called by the Lenapes Kanapaka after their practice of setting up a weir, a kind of woven fence, across it to catch shad and other fish that swam upstream every spring to spawn. Settlers imitated the practice using nets to catch the fish. A period print shows that as late as the mid-1800s, fishermen netted striped bass from the creek, but these fish were fast diminishing. When the creek entered its urban industrial phase of human use, it began dying. The creek became an industrial waterway by the mid-1800s. When coal oil was refined as an illuminant, Newtown Creek became the site of New York kerosene works, the largest in the country. Soon after petroleum was discovered in 1859, oil refineries in the country began operations on Newtown Creek. In 1869, New York kerosene works was bought out by Pratt's Astral Oil, which was in turn subsumed into Rockefeller's Standard Oil. Standard Oil of New York, or Socony, was incorporated in 1882. Oil refining also spawned a huge petrochemical industry, producing not only kerosene, but naphtha, chemical fertilizers, benzene, and more. The Industrial Revolution had transformed Newtown Creek into one tiny but vital strand in a global trading network. But unlike previous economic phases of human use, the industrial phase marked a radical shift. The creek was stripped of its ecological value. Like all of nature, it had become commodified, reduced to its function as an industrial waterway and common sewer. The roots of New York's environmental justice movement may arguably be traced to Newtown Creek, whose industries were the target of several media exposés in the 1880s, which uncovered toxic landfills, noxious fumes, and chemical effluvia that were sickening residents. According to the medical journal of the time, The Sanitarian, people were afflicted by nausea, headache, respiratory problems, depression, and sleeplessness, sometimes with fatal results, especially in children. Nor were industries the only polluters. The city used Newtown Creek as a dumping ground for quote-unquote every species of movable filth New York and Brooklyn could produce. Following a state board of investigation in 1881, Board of Health investigation, the governor issued a proclamation ordering the offenders removed from populous districts and regulating industrial wastes. His decree was toothless. Subsequent investigations exposed ongoing offenses, moving the editors of the Sanitarian to conclude that, quote, it may truly be said, while the authorities twist their noses in one direction, they row in another. 5 years later, the Brooklyn Daily Eagle recounted a trip up the creek undertaken by State Fish Commissioner Meserole, a descendant of the first farm founders of Newtown Creek. Foul odors nauseated him and permeated his clothes. The water was a viscous black fluid, a repository of sludge acid, coal tar, and other chemical substances. Its banks were, quote, covered with a black deposit, in some places an inch thick, which spread out over everything like a blanket, end quote. The propeller of the passing tugboat stirred up a malodorous mass from the murky depths. Meserole declared he would prosecute those offending industries and pursue the goal of purifying New York's waters. Standard Oil, he stated, quote, has evinced a desire to obey the law. Evinced was the operative word. A century later, Newtown Creek became, again, a galvanizing point of the citizens' environmental movement. In the early 21st century, environmental lawyer Basil Seagos would motor his 36-foot lobster boat as far as it could go into the creek's 5 tributaries, often blocked by trash plumes where garbage piled up several feet thick. Seagos was working for riverkeeper as Newtown Creek's monitor. Like Meserole before him, he took water samples to determine how safe it was for fish and crab in these waters. He describes his journeys as going into the heart of darkness. The stench of raw sewage and hydrogen sulfide are sickening, he tells me. In the farthest reaches, junked cars and other detritus of civilization clog the creek. This is the visible pollution. Worse is what lurks in the creek bed: PCBs, DDT, mercury, lead, and other toxins, and sludge acid, just as Meserole had reported a century before. It was on a routine boat trip in 2002 that the iridescent sheen of oil caught Basil's attention.